Today we're going to be talking about the best nootropics for programming. Whether you're a beginner coder, you're just learning HTML and CSS, JavaScript, or whether you're advanced, you're on Ruby on Rails, it doesn't matter. I'm going to help you find the best nootropics and models that you can use in order to improve your performance and improve your coding abilities. Coders have a lot of unique needs when it comes to improving their cognitive abilities, and coders are oftentimes on the forefront of nootropics and smart drugs. If you look at Silicon Valley and you look at some of the big movers and shakers in the world, they're oftentimes people who know how to code, and oftentimes those people want to get ahead in certain ways. And the way I broke it down is into two parts. Part one are the beginners, and beginners really have to absorb a lot of information, and this is where I find the racetam family of drugs really, really useful. A great place to start, if you haven't used nootropics before, is just paracetam combined with choline. Start with a low dose of choline and work your way upwards and see if that actually helps to improve your cognitive abilities while you're programming. But paracetam, you can actually start around 2 grams, but take up to 5 grams. So if you're just starting off, or even if you're an advanced user, remember to go all the way up to 5 grams of paracetam, because most of the studies that show improved cognition are with the higher doses. The second option for a beginner programmer would be oxiracetam. Now, I don't particularly find it to be anything special, but when I was perusing through Reddit and Longevity, I found a ton of programmers talking about oxiracetam. Specifically, I saw a bunch of people talking about their anecdotal reports with oxiracetam. So I don't think there's any consensus on the science behind why oxiracetam might work better for programmers, but it seems to be the case that many of the programmers love oxiracetam. Another option, of course, would be phenylparacetam, which is in the same racetam line of drugs. It can help improve your memory, but at the same time, it's highly stimulating. So for people who want to learn what they're doing with a new programming language and at the same time have the motivation and focus on their work, phenylparacetam might be a great option. Now for the professionals who have been coding for a long time or programming or just know what they're doing, oftentimes the best thing that they can do is achieve a flow state. Now I'm sure all of you are familiar with achieving a flow state. Steven Kotler talks about a specific method that you can use in order to hack flow and perhaps increase your chances of getting into flow.
A really cheap flow hack is, and it won't work over time, but if you go for a 20-minute 25-minute run, low-grade run, you're inducing exercise-induced transient hypofrontality. We talked about that, followed by a cup of coffee, followed by a joint, and you're going to essentially mimic the majority of the neurochemistry that shows up in a flow state. So it's an artificial flow state. So you can do it that way.
Now, many of you may have friends who smoke marijuana before they start programming and coding, and there seems to be a number of different cognitive benefits to using THC, and evidently Steven Kotler believes so as well. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of smoking anything, and if you're in a place where it's illegal to smoke marijuana, I wouldn't recommend that either. But the point is, if you have this combination of ingredients, you might more easily hack your flow state. My more nootropic-based option would be to use caffeine and L-theanine together, and then also on top of that add either CBD oil or microdosing LSD or psilocybin. Now in the 1960s, Dr. James Fadiman did studies on microdosing and how it impacted people with problems that they were trying to solve in a professional sense. Many of the people came up with patents, they had big solutions, and if you're struggling with an aha moment, a light bulb moment with your programming, perhaps this flow state could help you. Again, that's a combination of caffeine with L-theanine in a 1-to-2 ratio, respectively, and then take either CBD oil or microdose LSD or psilocybin. Another thing to keep in mind is that Programming often interacts with the brain in a way that's completely different than you might expect. Many people think it's very logical, very math-oriented, but a study from the University of Magdeburg showed through fMRI scans that the regions of your brain that are activated when you program and you code are actually the language centers, so verbal processing, and that is completely different than what most people expect. What that really shows is just how nuanced our brain is. Oftentimes front-end developers have to be a little more creative, a little more design-oriented, while back-end developers are almost strictly logic-based. People who know low-level languages might need more focus and concentration to get through the work, whereas people in higher-level languages might need an anxiolytic or an anti-anxiety option in order to help them improve their performance working on the code. If you're a professional, high-level coder and you're working on some really interesting work, you might consider Bacopa Monnieri, ashwagandha, or TNFT. Now, for Bacopa, you're going to want to make sure you give it 4 to 6 weeks because it can take time before it improves cognition. You might see anti-anxiety benefits right away, but just keep that in mind as a long-term play. Ashwagandha you can probably feel right away, and TNFT I know for a fact you will feel right away. So just keep that in mind. These are all options you can use in order to reduce your anxiety, hopefully improve your performance, and come up with some creative solutions. So guys, there's a couple more things that I want to follow up on. One is the light bulb moment, the flash of genius moment. Now, you've probably all experienced it before. If you're into coding, into programming, you've probably worked on a project where you're doing a bunch of little things and all of a sudden, aha, you figured out how to solve your problem. And that stroke of genius idea is huge, and there's opportunities for you to use nootropics to get there. Also, I want to give you guys the tools so that you can actually test whether or not any of these nootropics are improving your ability to program and to code. So I have a 1,700 word post, very comprehensive. Go ahead, click right there. That's it, guys. I am signing off from the University of Texas. I hope that's been useful to you. If you're a programmer or a coder and you want to improve your mental performance while you're doing your work, these are some nootropic options. If you want more in-depth, check it out again right here. I'll see you next time. So that's it, guys. Those are your